You're listening to the Trade Show Insights Podcast, Season 12, Episode 3. I'm your host and exhibit marketing strategist, Marlis Arnold, bringing you tools to improve your exhibit results. On today's episode, brought to you by the Exhibit Marketers Cafe, we've got a special guest here to talk about how one convention center is making a big impact by going green.
Well, on today's Trade Show Insights podcast, we have a special guest, and this interview actually came about as a result of a recent ExpoChat where we were talking about trade shows and what can be done to make them more green. And I was very impressed with what I was hearing about the Cobo Center in Detroit. And so I have invited Claude Molinari, who is the general manager of the Cobo Center, to join us today to share a little bit more about what they are doing, what they've done so far, and what they're doing to really make the convention center more green and also encourage all of their shows to do the same. So thank you, Claude, for being our guest today.
Thank you very much, Marlis. It's great to be here.
Well, let's just jump right in here, and I want to start off. I know that you have the Cobo Center Green Committee, so I want to kind of start there, find out when was that formed and how does that work? Is that, or was that your first step, I guess, first of all, is how did you get started with this whole, I would say major green initiative?
Well, prior to coming to Detroit, I was at the David Lawrence Convention Center in Pittsburgh, which is a LEED Platinum certified green facility. And so when I came to Detroit, I felt that was very important to bring that level of commitment to green to this building as well. Detroit has not been known as a very green city or as Cobo Center as a green venue before that, so we wanted to change that perception. And so in about 2011, we really started to put our green committee together, and we started really gaining steam in 2012. We've got members from every ops department and vendor company located in Cobo Center. So it's a wide variation of people who are part of this group. So everything from the food service to the maintenance to the cleaning of the facility to the contractors all take part and are expected to be contributors.
Well, and that's part of what impressed me is because, a lot of facilities are doing, basic green things like recycling and donating leftover food and things like that. But yours is such a very all-encompassing, it really takes into account all of the departments, like you said. So let's kind of go through some of those different sectors and what they're doing. So first of all, your facility itself, you've made a lot of changes. It's not necessarily, as you mentioned, the center in Pittsburgh is LEED certified. Detroit doesn't necessarily have that. But what are some of the things that you've done to improve the facility itself?
Well, some of the things are just your basic blocking and tackling. Like, we've put motion sensors in every room so the lights turn off when the rooms are vacant. We've changed out a lot of the light bulbs. Again, we put in induction lighting into the exhibit halls, which saves 40% off of the energy costs of your typical metal halide type light bulbs. Daylight harvesting. We've got light meters on the exterior of the building, so when it's really bright and sunny and it's coming through the glass windows, then we're going to turn down the lights, and when it's darker, they'll improve. And I think one of the biggest things that we do is we monitor every kilowatt hour, every steam M-pound, and every gallon of water that comes through this facility or is consumed. We measure everything. We keep track of it. And so when we see there's a challenge or we notice that, hey, we're behind, we're consuming more of, let's say, steam to heat the building than we had budgeted for, and we can't attribute it to events, we start looking for, well, is there a problem? Is there a steam leak somewhere? What exactly is bringing this on? So I think one of the biggest factors is the vigilance part. If everyone cares and everyone's monitoring, then you're much more apt to be successful at this.
Well, that's a really good point. And like I said, it still goes back to your whole idea of everybody functioning as a team. It's not one person's responsibility to make sure the facility is green, but everybody's working together. I know you also have a green roof. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. So we've got a green roof on the south side of the building. And what's nice is that we'll use the runoff rainwater to keep that roof green so that, besides just what comes from the the natural habitat, we've also got, using some of that water from the side. And it's also a very nice feature of the building, both from an aesthetics point as well as from the part of it being a green venue report put out there as among the venue leaders in green activity. True.
Well, like you said, it's not only functional, it's also a beautiful feature that adds to the ambiance of the center as well. So, what about a lot of places do basic recycling, the paper and waste and stuff, but what other efforts, you have a lot of other kinds of recycling that you do that some of it's kind of unusual. So can you tell us about some of the different recycling efforts?
Sure, absolutely. Well, one of the big things that we've introduced is the composting program. We instituted that 2 years ago, and we work with a group, a local group called My Green Michigan. They're our partner, and anything that comes out of the kitchen that is potentially compostable, we put into a special area, and our partner at MGM, or My Green Michigan, picks up the waste, and they turn it into compost, which they distribute to local urban farms. And that's, there are times when we'll have, a banquet for 8,000, 10,000 people, and all of the waste off of, things like the pineapples and the meat and the food, and then also the stuff that comes off the plates, the uneaten edibles, are then all turned into the composting area, and then it's picked up, and sometimes we'll have 3, 4, 5, 6 compost pickups in a week. So that's been a huge game changer for us. And again, we've done, last year we composted over 150,000 pounds of food that would have gone into the waste stream. So it's important that we have a partner to receive that because, one of the challenges you'll run into as a green facility is who's going to actually receive your compost. It took us about a year to start. After the time we decided we were going to go with the composting program, it took us almost a year to find a facility, a venue, to receive it. Because if you don't have it, there's nowhere for it to go, and it winds up going into the waste stream. So it was really important for us to identify a great partner who could also come and make multiple pickups because, again, if it's in the middle of the summer, you can't have all this food waste sitting on your loading dock for 4 or 5 days in the blazing heat. So again, I think that's a critical component is you've got to have that partner who can work with you. But again, we've seen incredible numbers from that standpoint, and we're really excited about how the composting program has taken off. So our feeling is if we can't donate it, then we have to compost it.
I think that's awesome. I mean, those numbers are just mind-blowing that how much food, when you stop and think that, at an average venue, how much food is really just thrown away like that. Not recyclable or not donatable food, but just food,
Correct.
Like you said, that's just waste. So, but tell us a little bit more about how because you said the key was developing that partnership. So was that part of what the Green Committee worked on, was developing, researching the area to find a local vendor that would work with you, or how did that come about?
Yeah, well, correct. So we first started out, again, we met with several different groups, and some of them just didn't have the wherewithal or the ability to receive, one group was like, we can't take any fish, we can't take any bones, and it started to become like, all right, well, that's not going to work for us. And so we made those moves. And again, no matter who the partner is that's receiving the compost, they'll also have a minimum contamination rate. Some of them are as low as like 2%, whereas so again, you got to be very strict. You don't want to go through all this composting and then turns out that, it's contaminated, they can't receive it, and then it just winds up going to the waste, the trash haulers at the end. So you've done all this work and it didn't work out. So it's really critical for us, especially, we work with our kitchen team, and that was a lot of education that had to go in there and say, all right, this is compostable, this is not. This can go into the bins, this can't, and so once we got that put together and the team really got on board, and again, I think that it was, it went from a priority to a real value. Whereas, look, we have to do this to, wow, this is great. I'm seeing this. And when I see the numbers posted every month, and again, we share all of our waste diversion report, not only with all of our employees, but also our show management teams and the authority that we report to. So it's part of our balanced scorecard where we're judged on how we're doing compared to our deliverable or to our goals with regard to the green team. So, and for instance, we started out in our year one, we were like, well, we just want to try to get to 50 tons of compost. We thought that would be a great, first year. And when we came in with almost 70 tons, that was we smashed that goal, and we were really excited about that. And again, that a lot of people take a great deal of pride in that, and if you're going to do something, it's like if you're going to play the game, you want to win the game. Mm-hmm. You want to be on a team, you want to be a first place team, and that's really how we worked it.
Well, and I love the fact, too, that it's almost like it's become a form of gamification, where it's like every year you're trying to beat your last year's record or something. And so you've got, like you said, the whole kitchen staff is now on board, and they're all like, oh, let's see how much we can recover here through composting.
And I do think I have to always temper that because, if there's 12 months and you've got, 12 segments, if we don't meet our goal that month, sometimes people are very disappointed and they take it to heart. And I have to, sometimes cheer up, all right, we didn't make our numbers this month, but let's, you can't now pout about it for a couple of days. We got to get back at it, and so, we're our goal is always to be like 8 and 4, like 8 months we make it, 4 months, we'll do our best. We want to go 12 for 12, but that's not always possible depending upon the shows and what's going on. A lot of it is out of our control. And again, I think that, when I was in, I was at a different facility once where we had a circumstance where we just, we had to basically, throw in the towel and throw some stuff in the trash just because we were so overwhelmed. It was just not possible to keep up that day, and it was disappointing. But, when we talked to our consultant, from Leader, like, hey, listen, this is not the worst problem to have. Like, you guys killed it and you got overwhelmed, and that's just, it's not optimal, but we can definitely live with it. Again, and we're always trying to work within the spirit of, maintaining our green focus and where there's, sometimes it's just not possible to be as green as you want. We're still being, stewards of the environment.
Well, and I think the biggest hurdle you crossed a long time ago, it sounds like, and that's the education side of things and really just getting everybody on board and getting everybody, changing the mindset of the employees at the center so that everybody's working towards the same goal, because sometimes that's the most challenging piece is getting everybody to understand, okay, this is what we're doing and this is why, but it sounds like you definitely have that employee buy-in.
Well, we talk about here, there's apathy, priority, and value. Apathy is management doesn't care, so I don't care. Priority is I better do this because I'll get in trouble if I don't. And then value becomes, wow, I really understand how important this is, and I feel good about doing it, and I'm going to do my best. And I think we've really turned the corner here on the value side. And again, I think that you mentioned the education is critical. We have 100 recycling stations throughout the facility so that we'll have our paper, our trash, our bottles and cans, the vehicles, the receptacles are all labeled both on the side and on the top. They've got their own special handling pieces, but But then on top of that, against the wall, that faces, wherever the stations are set up, we've got education on there that says, these are the things that you put here, and these are the things that go there. These are the items that are in this particular location. So you've got, that messaging, which I think is critically important, because if you just have, a circular can out there with a circular top that you assume, as a green person, maybe that, clearly that's where the bottles and cans go, that may not be so obvious to, the million guests that come through our building every year. And so it's critical for us to, make it as easy as possible. And again, that's why we have so many recycling stations throughout the facility. If you have to, take those 30 cans or that, ream of paper up 2 elevators across the building, down 2 elevators to get to the recycling station, that's almost impossible. You're just not going to get the kind of cooperation and buy-in that you would if you make it very easy. And so we really try to have, recycling stations throughout the facility and then like depots to receive those in 4 parts of the building so that it's not such an, impedance to, I'm trying to do my job, but it makes it hard if I have to, bring all this recycling to a specific area that's, basically as far away from where I am as physically possible in the building. So again, I think it's super important to, not only build the enthusiasm for it and to track everything, but also from a management standpoint, you really got to make it as easy as possible to do this, because the easiest thing in the world is just throw something in the trash. It's simple. Everything goes in one spot. You're good. It's not always, but it takes some commitment of the team. But I think we also have to work towards making it as seamless as possible so that it's not such an imposition that somebody's job became so much more, so much more difficult because we're a green venue.
Well, exactly, because even the most well-intentioned person is not going to go, like you said, go clear to the other end of the center just to recycle something. Even if that's, their native instinct and that's what they really want to do, it's got to be something that's convenient and obvious to everyone. And,
and at times when I've been at venues where they don't have any recycling, I'll be walking around with a water bottle, like an empty water bottle for like 15, 25 minutes. And I wind up like, I once brought one back on a plane just because I kept saying, I just can't bring myself to throw this away. It's just, that's a little crazy.
I'm right there with you. I've done the same thing. And I remember once I was staying at a hotel that didn't have any recycling, and the gal at the front desk just took my magazines and stuff and said, I'll take them home and recycle them. So, it's got to be something that's obvious, because probably a lot higher percentage of the audience is looking to recycle and wants to do the right thing. But, if they don't see it, they're not going to ask.
Exactly.
So I want to back up just a little bit. We talked a lot about your composting. You also do some other food-related efforts as far as, actually food in and food out. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, sure. We're very blessed here in Detroit. We have the Eastern Market, which is located just a couple of miles from our center. And we do a lot of sourcing from that market. And again, about 25% of our food is purchased locally. And again, that's something for a building as large as Cobo Center. And we offer a lot of specialty menus too, where we'll have 100% locally sourced food and or vegan alternatives. That makes it a lot easier. So there's some great growing here in Detroit. In Southeast Michigan. So we have the opportunity. Certain vegetables are really very close by. But again, I think that's really critical for us. And having that Eastern Market located right nearby is a great benefit to us.
That is great. And again, most venues probably have that kind of resource if they would just look for it. So I think a lot of it goes back to you have worked to develop those partnerships within your region, and I think that's a really important factor as well.
Well, thanks. And I think also something's better than nothing a lot of times is, like we grow certain foods on the roof here. We have herbs that we grow and we put them in as wherever possible. And, that may only be, 4 or 5% of somebody's meal. But again, that's something that wasn't trucked here, driven here, shipped here, flown here, which
you can't get much more local.
Yeah. Go upstairs and pull some of that.
I love it. Well, we were talking about partnerships. Let's kind of shift gears a little bit as far as the partnership you have with your event managers, show managers that come in and do events at Cobo Center. What kinds of things, I know that's a key part of the puzzle because you guys can do all this wonderful stuff, but if they're not buying in and participating, so what do you do to get your shows and events involved?
Well, some of the shows, like we've got an event coming up called Sustainable Brands. They would not have chosen our venue. They would not have come here if we weren't a green venue. Other events, have less of a commitment, but still are interested in being a part of our green programs. So we provide them with data, a lot of times like total waste from the event, recycling, compost, waste diversion total, best practices, things that we've done and we can identify for them. And there's something, especially if it's a returning event, that we can do, they can work with us on to make improvements there in the future. And, again, a lot of times we'll find out, where are you going to be shipping a lot of this stuff? Is there going to be, what about the carpet? Can we recycle that? Is it going to be left behind? And again, anything we can do if they're doing like, a food function on the exhibit floor, let's say, in their event, then we'll put out extra composting stations so that we'll have, be able to capture some of that, which would be, like a bonus from things that maybe we wouldn't have gotten otherwise. So a lot of it is just working with them and seeing what their event is going to have. And if they're going to have specific, things, we work with them a lot of times too. Can we put out, Cambros of water versus putting out a bunch of bottled water, things along those lines that, again, are smaller things. But again, everything is something. Some things are more important than others, but everything is, if it's leading towards that positive green effort, then that's a good thing.
True. Well, and you also have a lot of great information on your website. I know that there's a tip sheet, 20 key ways events can go green. So we'll put a link to that in our show notes as well so people can go and check that out because those are some great tips. And you do a lot of education on your website. I think you guys have a great green section in there.
Well, thanks. I appreciate that, Marlis. I think that it's very important. Our team, Mary Clyda, who's in charge of all the marketing for for Cobo Center, she does an unbelievable job of just keeping everything concise and put out there. And again, we've got a link on our homepage to extensive support materials and info on our green initiatives. And again, we've got posters and things around the building too that highlight our green champions, so that when people, sometimes we catch people, they're looking at the poster and then they'll see the chef or they'll see, one of our cleaning staff or operations staff like, hey, you're that guy. Like, yeah, or you're that girl. So, we're really, I think that, and again, I think that that type of recognition also helps because it's not always, some of this work is not always the most glamorous. And again, but it's critically important to our mission.
Well, I think you guys are doing a phenomenal job. And like I said, I was so impressed after hearing just a few little tidbits on the ExpoChat tweet. So I just wanted to make sure that you guys had an opportunity to share all the wonderful things that you're doing and also to inspire other shows and other venues to follow your lead and really just, like we said, the biggest thing is starting with the education and developing the mindset among not only your team but also the events that you work with. So I think kudos to you. I think you're all green champions.
I really appreciate that. We're not where we want to be. We want to continue to grow. We want to want to expand our goals. As you'd mentioned earlier, we always want to do a little bit better, but I do think that it's, it's really important to us that we are living it. We're not just talking about being green, but we're actually really focused on being a green venue. And again, we hold ourselves accountable and we measure it, and we have, and if we're not meeting our goals, then we have to double our efforts and keep on going.
Well, keep up the great work, and thank you so much. I appreciate your time, Claude, for being a guest today on Trade Show Insights.
Thank you so much, Marlis.
If you enjoyed today's episode and would like more, subscribe to the Trade Show Insights podcast and automatically receive future episodes on your chosen device. Simply click on Podcast in the top menu at tradeshowinsights.com and then select Subscribe from the drop-down menu, and you'll find instructions for Apple, Android, and more. Trade Show Insights is protected by the Creative Commons copyright license. You may feel free to share this recording with colleagues or embed it on your own blog as long as it's shared in its entirety and is not used for commercial purposes. To learn more, please see the link in the sidebar of the show notes at tradeshowinsights.com. Well, that's it for this episode of Trade Show Insights. Be sure to check out our show notes and archives at tradeshowinsights.com. You can also connect with me using the social media links or the contact page on the site. I'm Marlis Arnold. Thanks for listening, and be sure to join us next time for more tools to improve your exhibit results.